everybody, and welcome back to Faith Brunel's Insights. I'm Faith Brunel, and today we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Beverly Lindsay OBE. So, by way of introduction, I'm going to set the scene, give you the context, and then we're going to start by asking Dr. Lindsay some really, really interesting questions that I've put together and that I can't wait to hear the answers for. Okay, so without further ado, Dr. Lindsay, I'm just going to set the scene briefly about about kind of how I came across you, and then I will ask some questions. I'll then ask you to introduce yourself to the listeners to give it a personal feel. So before I do that, let me set the context, let me set the foundation for this episode here today. Okay, so let me start by declaring my hand, why I sought to interview yourself, and let me tell the listeners why I wanted to interview Dr. Beverly Lindsay OBE today. So I'd say blame my mother. She is a role model for me, as we were actually talking about before we actually pressed the record button, because she embodies the spirit and the kind of, she embodies the spirit of a serial entrepreneur, as we discussed. I was showing Dr. Lindsay some of my merch before this episode was recorded, and she said that I'm very entrepreneurial, so I thank my parents for that, and I definitely thank my mother, as she's a serial entrepreneur as well. So so just talking briefly about my mother. Dr. Lindsay will be aware that she used to own a hat shop in Edgbaston. She's now also moving online. Her business is called Brunel's Hats and Accessories, or just brunels.co.uk. So feel free to check that out. And in her spare time, she also writes some books under a company called Lolonio. Okay, so my mom is passionate about her beliefs, directing her intentions, and extremely resilient. So actually, Dr. Lindsay, funnily enough, my mom recommended you to me as an ideal and an interesting candidate to interview, and I now understand why after reading in depth about you and your wonderful achievements. So, Dr. Lindsay, I now turn to you. Can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Good morning, Faith. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes.
I think you've done most of the introduction. You called my name. I'm Beverly Lindsay. I'm from Birmingham. And you mentioned OBE, but I'm very proud of my OD as well, which is a similar honor from the Jamaican government that I received in 2008. So that's order of distinction. So I had that. I received that before I received the OBE, which the OBE was in 2011. But I'm from Birmingham. I spent all of my adult years in Birmingham. And I don't know how far you want me to take this introduction, because we're going to your questions.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thank you, Dr. Lindsay, for setting the scene there about your achievements and the OD as well from the Jamaican government, which again, I will say congratulations. That is a wonderful achievement to have. And it's very inspirational, actually, as a Black woman, to see your achievements and what you have achieved. And I love the part where you were talking about, I was reading one of your interviews that you'd previously done for Birmingham Live magazine, and you were talking about how you are a mentor and you are kind of, you want to empower the community. And when I see that, it's really, really inspirational. It's encouraging to myself. You mentioned you're from Birmingham. I'm from Birmingham. Although I'm currently living in London while I'm studying or reading politics at King's College London, I am originally from Birmingham. So it's nice that we have that in common as well. So how are you, and how's the week been so far?
I am good. I've been very, very busy. It's been a very busy few weeks. I actually had a knee replacement surgery in February.
Yes.
And I'm having another one on the 7th of December. So I'm very busy the last few days and coming days, putting my life in order. I run a business. I have a business that was established in 1987, a travel agency that is still going.
Yes.
Amongst other things that I have to put in order. But I've been good, thank God.
Wonderful.
The last time I caught COVID just before my surgery, so it had to be postponed. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that I keep well.
Yes. Well, I will keep you in my prayers as a praying woman myself and a Christian. I will definitely keep you in my prayers that God will keep you and sustain you during that surgery. And yes, so I completely can concur and share the same sentiment about being very busy. I'm in my final year here at King's, and I have a dissertation to do, which is 8,000 words. I have different essays and assignments, so I'm constantly reading or writing or editing something. Excuse me. And in my spare time, I then podcast and I do other things as well. So it's been a busy week for myself, but I'm glad that we found some time where we can discuss your achievements. So just before we begin
And
with
I met you. I know your parents because I used to go to the same church many years ago. And I've bought many hats from them because I'm a person. I'm known in my church with the lady with the hat because I still wear hat to church on Sunday. I love my hats.
That's lovely. Yeah, to be honest, I love my hats as well. And that definitely comes from my mom, both, designing and making and selling hats as well, honestly. And it's lovely to hear that you have bought and you were satisfied with your product, which is great. It's always good to meet a nice customer. No problem at all.
When you ask the questions, I can elaborate on that.
Oh, yeah. I completely understand.
Clarify certain things.
Yes, please do. Okay, everybody. So now, just before we begin with the main questions, I just want to recognize some of Dr. Lindsay's achievements, so previous achievements and achievements in general. So I read online that you were the Birmingham Rotary Club's first African Caribbean female president. The Jamaican government did not let you rest on your laurels and awarded you the Order of Distinction, which stands for OD. The Queen then awarded you an OBE and made you a Deputy Lieutenant of the West Midlands in 2013. 4 years later, you were then appointed as the first female Vice Lord Lieutenant of the Lord Lieutenant of the West Midlands for a 3-year tenure in the almost 500 years of the lieutenancy in 2017. These are very, very significant and wonderful achievements. So my question to you is, what did you learn about yourself?
Yeah, let me just clarify a couple of things that you've said about the lieutenancy. Yes, I was awarded the Order of Distinction from the Jamaican government in 2008, and 2011 I was honored with the OBE. I was appointed by the Lord Lieutenant, then Lord Lieutenant, as a Deputy Lieutenant of the West Midlands in 2013. That is the Lord Lieutenant in each county. Lord Lieutenants were first appointed by King Edward VIII in the 1540s, and in each county of the United Kingdom, there's a Lord Lieutenant, and then a vice, and then several deputy lieutenants. So the then Lord Lieutenant in 2013 appointed me as a deputy lieutenant, and then in 2017, we had a new Lord Lieutenant who gave me this amazing honor of being the Vice Lord Lieutenant. That means the second in command, as it were, to represent the Queen, or then the Queen or the monarchy, the British monarchy. And that, as I said, you said was a 3-year tenure. I'm back now to being a Deputy Lieutenant again. So the Deputy Lieutenant represents the Lord Lieutenant, who represents the monarch, and the Vice Lord Lieutenant and the Lord Lieutenant represents the monarch directly. So when I make speeches, I can say on behalf of Her Majesty or His Majesty when I was Vice Lord Lieutenant. When I do it now as a Deputy Lieutenant, you say, on behalf of the Lord Lieutenant, who is the monarch's representative. I hope you get that.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Lindsay, for giving us a work through or a breakdown for both myself and the listeners as to kind of what that means. And that makes sense, actually. So when you were delivering your speeches, you could then say on behalf of His Majesty or Her Majesty, etc. That makes sense because you had that title and that responsibility that came with it. So thank you for that wonderful clarification.
And as I say, I was the first female Vice Lord Lieutenant of the West Midlands in the almost 500 years history, which is a great honor. I when I made speeches, I used to say, I'm covered with bruises because I keep pinching myself because, for somebody like myself coming from, I spent my formative years in Jamaica. I came here. I became, unfortunately, I don't know, but I was a teenage single mother from Handsworth, and to be, speaking on behalf of the Queen, then then Queen, it was quite an amazing and surreal experience.
And I'm glad that you shared some insight into that. We're actually going to talk about that very, very soon. So I really want to get into your thoughts about that. But I just want to also say, so you said that you are that you've learned a lot about yourself and you keep pinching yourself. And I'm really happy that you had that opportunity. And, you know, as you said, for someone like yourself, but also just for, you know, it's a wonderful achievement. But I just want to ask then, just to delve into those experiences then that you've kind of touched on, what is your 3 top takeaway tips for those wanting to make a difference in their local community?
First and foremost, I encourage young people and people, the first thing that you need to keep on the right side of the law. Try to focus. Try to be ambitious. Sometimes I think for young people, I said sometimes you have to be tunnel vision if you want to succeed. Because sometimes you can be influenced here or there and go take the wrong road. You have to focus, aim high, work hard, and you can be anything you want to be. I went to, I know you put there that I didn't leave from St. Thomas straight to the UK. My parents left when we were young, left us in St. Thomas, but we were then taken to the city in Kingston and boarded out and went to, and I went to the first school, it's like a prep school.
Yes.
We call it prep school. It was like a primary school, but it's a prep school because it's a paid school. And I had some discipline from those days that I still talk to people about, because that was what formed me. You know, every morning we had to, those days we called it memory jam. And every morning we had to stand up straight and sit up straight and recite this, you know. One of them is don't lean on others, stand on a footing of yours, be independent and cultivate a sound backbone.
Yes.
And the other one was another poem by, I think, Longfellow, that said, heights by great men reached and kept was not attained by sudden flight, but they who while their companions slept were toiling upwards through the night. Nothing can be achieved unless you work hard. And even in my senior years now, I'm working even harder than when I was younger. So you have to be disciplined. You have to be honest in what you do. And if you want to go into business, as you may know, if you're thinking that you're going into business to get rich quick, forget it. You have to, I had another lesson and discipline that I learned when I was very young from my grandmother, who, you know, I had a grocery shop. You know, I was born. It's seeing my grandmother, seeing that grocery shop. We were born in that. And what I used to see my grandmother do is, when we go up on holidays, and if she gives you a sweet, she would put the money back in the till. She takes out a sweet out of the shop. And if she's going to cook dinner and she's going to weigh, she should weigh out whether it's the rice and the flour and the sugar. She'll weigh them out and she will put the money in the till. So that is the discipline I learned about business, that when you're running a business and you collect money, it's not yours money. You collect that money is to deliver whatever goods you are, and you have to buy and pay for your supplier for the goods that you're going to impart to your customers. So, and you must be ambitious and you must believe in yourself.
Yes.
I am preaching what I don't practice, because I still have a lot of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But I kind of bluff my way through life, you know, because even though, you know, it's like, as they would say, the swan, I am really panicking on it. I try to maintain a smooth surface and a positive image, because people don't like negative people around them. And even if you're sad and having problems, you know, I still come out with a smile. It's like the clown. I'm the clown that wear the happy mask to keep the world smiling. But you don't see the tears of the clown because that mask is happy. So sometimes you have to do that to get through life, for people to embrace you, because people don't want people always around them mourning and, you know, depressed. And, you know, so even sometimes I keep my trauma and my depression and my sadness to myself and put that mask on and step up there.
Mm. Well, thank you for really talking about and giving us an insight into your kind of like into your personal feelings, into your journey, into your lessons as well. I just want to draw on them when you said, you know, you have to stay on the right side of the law. That's very, very important to note. You have to be ambitious, have self-belief, and the Faith Brunel's Insights brand, the podcast, and everything I really talk about is about, you know, believing in yourself, having that self-belief, that value of self-worth. And I was actually delivering a live talk yesterday talking about how when you are doing something, you have to believe in yourself, because that will be the stepping stone for you actually achieving success. And it's really good to have and set goals, as you were saying. If you just want to get into business to get rich quick, that's not quite the right kind of aim. That's not the right reason to go into business. Whereas if you want to make a difference in your community, if you want to share your passion, now that is the right way. Obviously with the monetary benefits, you know, could be obviously in the cost of living crisis right now, you need that finances to prop you up, which we'll get into in a moment. But you know, it's talking about that really. And I said, you know, as you were saying with imposter syndrome, and I know a lot of people who have actually experienced it. I went to this YDWC, which is this Black organization that basically pairs Black students with really important opportunities. And I was privileged enough I had the opportunity to attend the BT head office in London and hear from Paul Sobers, who is the head of early careers. And he was basically talking about how, and then I was talking to someone through the networking, and they said, you know what, I have imposter syndrome. And I was just really realizing that it is quite important to address that. So thank you for being honest with us and sharing about how you know you do have challenges, and I've had challenges. We all have challenges, but it's about how we use those challenges to push ourselves. And thank you for being so honest about that, because it's very encouraging to hear, and it's very interesting to hear, because people sometimes assume that just because you've achieved things that you haven't gone through anything, and that's not true. Because you know, and what I really admire about you is that regardless of your struggles, regardless of your difficulties, you have pushed yourself to be to this point. So once again, congratulations, and it's great to speak to you about that. You also mentioned about how you went to a prep school, and you know how they really instilled really important values, and I can totally relate. In my secondary school, I went to Edgbaston High School for Girls, which is a fee-paying private school. It's a private all-girls school actually, and we had. Sorry,
my granddaughter attended that school.
did you? Oh, lovely. And well, I'm sure she can attest to this, that we had to stand up when teachers entered the room. We had to wipe our own tables. We had to, but it was so much more than that, though. It was teaching us to respect our elders. It was teaching us to be independent. We had business skills. We learned, you know, we developed business acumen. And even what you were saying about your grandmother having a grocery store and business, I can again attest to that. My nan, who passed away, unfortunately, she passed away probably just over 7 years ago now. But and her name was Brunel Stone, which is why I'm Faith Brunel, and Brunel's is my mom's business. But she had a market stall, and she that was such a great achievement for her, and she was so inspirational in the skills that she not only gave to my mom and inspired you know, she inspired my mom and my mom's siblings, but also that was passed on to me. So I can definitely relate. So I want to get into it now. So how was it, kind of talk to us a bit about your experience moving from St. Thomas, Jamaica to Birmingham as a teenager? Obviously, it was directly from there, but that kind of process of moving from another country, how did you feel as you stepped off the plane?
Wow. Yes. I can't remember how I felt when I stepped off the plane. What I remember, when we came up, my brother and I came up on the same day. You know, we came, as I told you, we were living in Kingston, so it wasn't a transition from St. Thomas to Jamaica, because I went to school in Kingston before. And we were very well dressed. We were very dressed up, you know. I had on that white hat, broad rim hat, fancy hat. You know, they dressed up very well. They had the shoes, the bag, and a lovely suit and gloves. So and my brother, he you know, he died about 2 or 3 years ago. And my older brother, he had on this designer suit. He was a fan of Jerry Lewis, you're too young to know, but he's a comedian actor, an American actor, and he used to have these designer suits, trimmed with black. So all I can remember is people were just talking about us. People were pointing at us how well dressed we were.
Mm-hmm.
My mother came to pick us up, and that was in the early 60s, and with a friend, and my mother was very forward, because she drove her own car in those days. My mother had her own car, and the experience I remember, well, I remember the day driving from Heathrow. It was raining and it was glistening. And I remember the song that was playing on the radio at the time, Petula Clark, Downtown. And it was kind of dark and glistening, and there was a tinge of excitement as well, because when we were in Jamaica as little children, you thought England was this paradise place. Everywhere was paved with silver and gold. And we were living in a lovely house where we were boarded out prior to coming here. And, lovely, big, very big house, because there were a lot of other people. And and I heard that my mother had this, this big house. So we're looking for like a mansion with gardens and all that, because that's what you're coming from Jamaica. And so when we came, it was a Saturday, and we came to Birmingham, and got to the house. My mother still lives in the house. She's living in that house since 1960. She's 97 now.
Oh my God.
And they stopped at the gate. And then, this is a terrace house in Hansworth, most of those houses. So, you see the string of how everything together, so I just thought it was one big factory and smoke coming out of the roof, So I just thought, because coming from Jamaica, you don't have terrace houses. You have your house in your own yard and your garden. So I've seen this, I just thought it was a factory. And everybody was coming out of the car. So I sat back, and then I said, aren't you coming out? And I said, no, I can wait. And then I realized that this was home. So that was my first culture shock. And then going into the house, it was a big house, and we're fortunate that the home, in those days, a lot of people said they had to come up, children came up in rented property and so, but we were fortunate that we didn't have that. And the bedroom was nicely laid out, and the comb and brush set that was bought to make me feel welcome, and the dressing table glass set you might see it in some of these older people houses. And that was it. But I felt sad, because as a teenager, you start making friends and all that, and maybe having a crush on a boy that didn't really take any notice of you, but nonetheless, you live in hope. So at that time, coming was kind of sad. And then, the paraffin lamp and the fire in the dining room, one coal fire in the dining room that heat the water. So it was kind of a yes, strange experience.
Well, thanks again for giving us such a detailed insight into kind of how you felt, really detailing how, as you use the kind of phrase, it was a culture shock, because you're coming from Jamaica to the UK with such different things, from the architecture to the weather probably as well. So everything would have definitely changed. And I just want to also kind of move on to your work experience. What was it like working in nursing and midwifery? Or I think is it midwifery? I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but midwifery. Okay, the latter. Okay, everybody, it's midwifery, in case you want to pronounce it. What were some of your biggest challenges, and how did you overcome them?
I wouldn't say that I had challenges. Those days in nursing, there were a lot of Black nurses from the Caribbean in those days. So you had a kind of camaraderie, you felt like you have your own group. So they may have been somebody asked me that only a couple of days if you experience racism and so, but we didn't notice it because we had our own people.
Right.
And furthermore, I think personally, I was treated well enough because I remember the first place I worked, one of the first places I worked before, because I started nursing, then I got pregnant and had to leave, and was out of nursing for a while. Then I started, and the first time I remember they said the sister something didn't take to you or whatever, you get a lot of sluice, to clean up the sluice. That is where the bedpans and so on.
Yeah.
Those days, nurses had to do those duties. But after that, when I went back into nursing, I was okay. I held my head down and did my work, so I got on quite well. The only thing, and as I said, I didn't think I experienced any real racism. But what we used to laugh about as Black nurses, that some of the white nurses that worked with us on the ward, and you'd be friendly enough on the ward, and everybody did their job.
Yeah.
But we used to find out, if you see them on your days off in the city, they would pretend like they don't know you and they wouldn't speak to you. Yeah. But we had our own group of people. We used to talk in our patois when we don't want them to understand what we're saying. And so I enjoyed nursing. I enjoyed midwifery. I mean, who wouldn't enjoy delivering babies? And before I left nursing, I specialized in neonatal baby care. I did a special care baby care course, and I worked on that ward, before I left, where we see some amazing miracles.
Yes.
You have babies but born just over a pound, and you see them and feed and change and feed and change and after them and nurse them until they're ready to be discharged at a good weight. So it was very rewarding. Those days we had a lot of challenges with rhesus negative mothers, and babies needed exchange transfusion and all that. So I did quite a lot of that. But I enjoyed nursing. And maybe you might ask, if I enjoyed nursing, why did I leave?
No, to be honest, that wasn't one of the questions, but it's a similar question though, but it isn't that kind of question, but it does stem from what you did after nursing. I was actually going to say, what was the catalyst that caused you to become a senior community worker after being a nurse / midwife in Handsworth?
So when I was doing nursing, I used to volunteer on days off. I did all kind of thing at work. I volunteered, and I was in Handsworth at the time, and it was a time when there was a lot of, and I say that, and it's like I'm speaking in the past, but in the present, when there was a lot of problem with Black youths and police. Nothing has changed in the past 40 years, and so this was law. There were a lot of Black. It was at the brink of the uprising of the Rastafarism, and there was a lot of problem with Black kids and police.
Yeah.
And I just thought maybe I could make a difference if I really did this full time. So I went to Jamaica on holidays, I remember, and I just came back and gave my notice in. And everybody said, well, Lindsay, you love nursing too much, because, whatever I do, I try to do well. Yes. So you might think, if I don't love it, I love it, because I just like to, I don't like failing. So, and they said, you soon come back. But I remember the nursing officer was very disappointed, because we really got on very well. And they said, they thought I would come back.
Yeah.
And they said, what you want to do? What are you going to do? And I said, I just want to work with Black people. That was my response. So yes, I went and did a course it was Birmingham Polytechnic then, in community and advice work, and I secured a job. They needed somebody to work full time at the unit in Handsworth, Groblin. And yes, I was employed as a senior community worker, which those days meant that you look after a lot of social welfare, people on benefits, you're filling in forms, you're representing people at industrial tribunal, and of course, going into when sometimes young kids are arrested, sometimes even 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I would be in bed and I would get a call and that they've arrested somebody. I'd get out of bed, go to Tawny Road Police Station, get access to seeing them, get representation for them, accompany them to the magistrate court the following morning. So I spent a lot of time doing that kind of thing, which again was rewarding. And I've had quite a few testimonials too from people that I'm helping one way or the other. That I remember a young lady went into a shop and a young lady was calling out to me, Miss Lindsay, whatever I am today is because of you. And different things. I remember a woman crashed in her parked car, and she came out and she was saying she said, you don't know me, but I know you. You don't know me, but I know you. And she's gonna kill me now And she said, for 20 years that time I started my business. For 20 years I want to say thank you because, and she reminded me that I represented her at an industrial tribunal and she won the case when I was doing that job. So it was rewarding in many ways. And I've seen a lot of young people that I encourage and mentor during those days that they are, the beacon of the community now doing amazing things that I'm really honored to be a part of their lives. And when they see me out, they say, oh, yes, I owe you a lot. And, so it was a good journey, part of my journey.
Hi everyone, Faith Bernal here. This is the end of the episode, and without further ado, this is your host Faith Bernal signing off. If you'd like any more information about the episode or about Dr. Lindsay herself, then feel free actually to click on any of the links in the description, whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're listening through Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., etc. I thank you all for your continued support. And remember, it's not an event, it's a journey. Your journey can begin now. Bye-bye.